Is that a fly?
Yeah, paint replica.
I can't believe you've actually extracted a fly from inside this thing.
Yeah, it's just 100% paint.
I can see the hairs on his body. That's just crazy.
All these objects that were previously attached to a hard form are suddenly just rendered in this soft language.
It's almost like my house melted. It's like the aftermath.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's the accumulation of about 4 or 5 days worth of dishes and decay.
And you wouldn't be wrong.
So basically, over the last 15 years, I've been working in film and theatre, and I've been building up this huge catalogue in my head of materials and their applications. I've slowly started to experiment and bring those techniques and materials into creating my own art. They're basically representations of the landscape around me, my thoughts about the future of the landscape around me and how these things age, become eroded, become weather-beaten. I'm trying to create paintings that almost look like they sort of spontaneously occurred. It's just happening through the natural weathering of the materials.
This is one of the plank works. Essentially what I've done here is extend on that idea of tipping the paint off, and in this case the residue is part of the work as well. There's no tricks involved, it's just simply the paint running off the plank and forming this pool, this shape, which it does naturally. They sort of start that slippage into something other than painting, and so it's the ultimate response to gravity of paint. They were set up so that they almost appear to be die-cast or repeated shapes. But in every case, there are quite a few differences because of the process. Generally speaking, it's this coverage that's sort of like this over the whole board. The idea is just to get it to the edge. Normally I'd pour it a bit closer. But again, I suppose that's part of the accident thing. It's one of those factors that you have to accept. Whoops, talking of which. It's the first accident. This part's out of my control, so it's always a bit of a deep breath and away we go. There's always that variability between them, which I find fascinating. You can do exactly the same amount of paint, same size board, tip it, and the shape at the bottom will be different every time. By placing multiples into a space with those little differences, it creates an interesting conversation. That relationship becomes much more important than the individual pieces.
Yeah, well, to supplement my art career, I basically started up my own part-time lawn mowing business, working my way up to about 23, 24 customers. I find it really good, lawn mowing. Gives you a good amount of time to think, sort of mull over art concepts and that sort of thing. A lot of people sort of think, oh yeah, it's just mowing lawns, but for me it's a lot more than that. It's all about the branding and becoming that brand and being the man behind the brand. Yeah, so Glenosaurus lawn mowing. Is your lawn looking a bit wild?
The actual act of making a two-dimensional painting is you're actually taking an impression of the world and you're making it flat, so you're always thinking about how it's going to work on the surface. I'm putting down lots of layers. I'm putting them down in reverse, then going back and breaking through and tearing off the paint in the appropriate places to reveal the intended image underneath. I'd use a thick paint, thicken it up. I'm going to put in some plaster into it, some jib. Probably put quite a lot in. Get it quite thick, you know, there's no harm. I like the paint when it kind of goes cottage cheesy. Lay it on real thick, put lots of texture in. I'm not concerned about these lumps. I'll just push them around. They'll just add to the whole kind of thing. I try to work up from quite bright colours and then use washes of other products to give it a nice layered, rich kind of glow. Good way to start off is with this, basically a bitumen paint designed for kind of metal priming. It just looks like land to me. It looks like the scorched earth. It looks like the magma and the rock and the dirt and that glow from underneath. So I can kind of put it on and kind of take it back off. Once I put all my other layers on, it would kind of break through. I apply a resist between the layers so I can actually carefully plan where I'm going to put these elements. It's basically just talcum powder paste. It's kind of like we're designing the product to fail, so we're putting down a dusty layer so the paint won't actually stick. We'll put a nice heavy layer of paint over this, a nice thick opaque layer of paint, and we should be able to break through it and expose what's underneath. I'm trying to create this very definite division between the elements within the painting. The layers help to emphasise that contrast.
I don't know what the word I would look for, actually. It's not careless, but it's kind of without care.
Yeah.
It's ripping, and when something rips, you can't control a rip.
That's exactly
If something
right.
tears, you don't really have control over that.
I do like the idea that there is a roughness. When the weather decides to erode something, it's almost unstoppable. Yeah.
Well, the skins, I suppose, are a sort of a logical step on. Gradually, I've actually removed a lot of the support. I suppose the ultimate is that you remove the support entirely and just have the paint.
Helen, can you tell me a bit about what we're looking at here?
Each time I make a skin, it has a potential to be part of one work or another. And because they're incredibly pliable, as soon as you put them in a different space or put them on the floor, they change shape. And it's that living quality about them that I really like.
Okay. And further, you say skins, and by that you mean paint skins?
Yeah, yeah.
So are they paintings?
I suppose it comes down to the question, what is a painting? I don't think anyone can answer that question with any strong, clear, one definition. They're made from paint.
Made from paint?
Yeah. The skins are much more three-dimensional. They have more of a sculptural quality. They almost invite you to touch them.
They look like they'd be heavy.
They have quite a weight.
Yeah.
I can lift them. Any bigger could be a problem.
Tell me about the titles.
Each time I make a skin, I give it a weight title. All of these skins here have all been made with 250 fluid ounces of paint, about 8 litres. I'm calling them fluid ounces because I like the sound of that. It suggests the weight rather than litres. And they always have the colour added in, so it's yellow, 250 fluid ounces, or red, 250 fluid ounces. So there was a constant, real physical weight, but the colour might suggest otherwise.
Yeah, so basically the first objects were the paint skin sculptures, and then beyond this I wanted to take paint into a new testing ground, maybe getting inside one of my paintings.